Welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk, Uygur, and Kasparian with you guys. We do a non-traditional show.
Do we?
I think we do. I think it fits into absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
We don't do cable news style like, welcome everybody, the politicians are right about everything. The powerful should be protected.
We should start every episode of our show with TYT breaking news when it's not breaking news at all. Like it was something that we pitched during our morning meeting and produced throughout the day. But you know, Wolf Blitzer does it, so why can't we do it?
We could definitely do it. I feel like I really popped my collars today. Anyways,
do you, boo?
Okay.
Do you?
And then we're also not like anybody else online who's usually like, oh, that's my bedroom, whatever, or my garage, and
Yeah, yep. You mean the ones that actually make a lot of money, like playing video games?
Well, that's also how we're unlike other people. Okay, anyway, let's get started. We're breaking news.
Perfect. All right. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has officially changed her tune on the budget reconciliation bill. You know, the very bill that she claimed she desperately wanted to pass because she cares about the children. She wants to do something for the children. Well, it turns out the children don't matter all that much because in a private caucus meeting, Pelosi said the party must make difficult choices because the dynamics have changed and Democrats have not yet agreed to a spending level on the budget reconciliation bill, and that's according to a source familiar with this meeting. Now, I want to give you a direct quote from Nancy Pelosi. This is what she said to the Democratic caucus during this meeting last night. I told all of you that we wouldn't go on to the bipartisan infrastructure bill until we had the reconciliation bill passed by the Senate. We were right on schedule to do all of that. No, you weren't. Until 10 days ago, a week ago, when I heard the news that this number had to come down. It all changed, so our approach had to change. So look, if you're tuning in on this particular story for the first time, quick context, quick backstory. You have Biden proposing a massive piece of legislation. It includes infrastructure, both physical infrastructure and what he referred to as human infrastructure, all of the provisions that we actually care about that would materially benefit people's lives, childcare, elder care, Medicare expansion, all of that stuff, right? Mandatory paid family leave, that's all included in this massive bill along with the physical infrastructure. Then they decided, well, why don't we divvy up this bill into two separate bills, one being the corporate handout bill, that's the bipartisan legislation, and the other being the budget reconciliation bill, which the Senate theoretically could pass with a simple majority in the Senate. Well, it all ended up being a trick, at least on behalf of the moderate, or I should just say conservative Democrats, who never really had any interest in passing it. So even today, we're still at this point where the only thing that we can really rely on is progressives staying true to what they promised by blocking the bipartisan corporate handout bill. Okay, that's what corporations want, that's what conservative Democrats want, that's what Republicans want. Progressives should block it. No reconciliation bill, no bipartisan bill. That was the deal, they should stick to that.
Okay, our members speak for me. Here, Tatiana in Japan wrote in, Pelosi changes her tune. Hold my drink while I put on my surprise face. This might take a while.
Right.
But Tatiana, you apparently are being sarcastic about something that the mainstream media actually believes. They are all acting like shocked, like.
They're not acting shocked.
No, like NBC News explained it. Despite her progressive roots, Nancy Pelosi did this, which is really surprising. Is it? What progressive roots? Show me one time she sided with progressives over the corporate Democrats. Zero, never, literally never in her career. I challenge any so-called journalist in America to find me one time that she sided with progressives over conservative Democrats.
Well, you know, she has progressive roots because she says she has progressive.
Well, then you should write it down. Right? If you're a reporter, you should write it down.
That's exactly what they do,
because the powerful has said it.
They're stenographers. They can't point to a specific example, so they just regurgitate what Nancy Pelosi says. Remember, Nancy Pelosi might not have ever fought for universal health care or Medicare for all, but she certainly has signs in her basement. This is literally something she said. Signs in her basement in support of universal health care. Oh, well, progressive roots, those are progressive. Now look, Nancy Pelosi is gonna Nancy Pelosi. Like, I'm not surprised by this at all. I've always really put most of my faith, and there's very little of it at this point, behind the Progressive Caucus, because they have said repeatedly that they will block the bipartisan infrastructure bill unless they get the passage of the reconciliation bill. Look, I'm gonna be clear with you guys and be 100% honest. Some people might disagree with me. I don't care about the corporate handout bill. I would prefer to not pass anything at all, because honestly, that bill, there's a reason why corporations love it. It privatizes public infrastructure, which means we're gonna deal with additional regressive taxation in the form of tolls and fees every time we use roads and bridges that currently are free to use, okay? And then there's all sorts of little like leasing opportunities for corporations, massive government grants that will be given to third parties, again, corporations, to build infrastructure. It's all a way of redistributing money from the bottom to the top, again and again and again. So I don't care if progressives like defeat, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, have at it, have at it.
Guys, so you get to make your own, make up your own mind about who's right and who's wrong, especially if you've been watching this show throughout this entire process. Now, we told you that there was no way they were gonna get the Senate version of the $3.5 trillion bill ready in time for September 27th. That's preposterous. I said it would take them months and months. It's absurd to think that they would have gotten that ready. The second thing we told you is that Manchin and Sinema would play games and would try to block it, and they would never agree to it, and they would try to force the progressives into passing the corporate-backed one first. The corporate media believed everything that Pelosi and Biden and Schumer said, and they were like, oh no, they will support the progressives. They will do it both at the same time. Okay, now Pelosi comes out and says, I was kidding. Well, she doesn't actually. Now, you saw the quote that Anna read you where she said, oh, things have changed in the last 10 days. No, but guys, we told you that it would take months. Nothing changed in the last 10 days. She says she was surprised to find out that conservative Democrats in the Senate tried to lower the $3.5 trillion number. She should be fired immediately if that's true. Now, all of you know that right there, right? I mean, even if you're the most rah-rah MSNBC, corporate Democrat, whatever it is, okay? You know that Manchin and Sinema were gonna try to lower the $3.5 trillion. You know that, right? So Pelosi didn't know that? Pelosi didn't know that? She was surprised by that, and that happened in the last 10 days, and that's why she had to change her entire stance from the Senate has to pass it first to, never mind, let's just pass the corporate-backed one, and maybe we'll give you the other one later. Okay, no. So either she's deeply incompetent, like knows nothing about politics, and hence should be removed as Speaker of the House instantly, right? Or she's most obviously lying. So now again, the reason I blast the media is because, have you ever heard anyone in your entire life, on cable news or in print, say Nancy Pelosi is an obvious liar? Now I know they don't like to say, oh, that's rude. Have you ever seen anyone suggest that maybe that doesn't seem credible, that she would be surprised that conservative Democrats would want to lower $3.5 trillion. Have you ever seen Rachel Maddow say it? Yeah, I said it. Have you ever seen the New York Times say it? Like, never. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing that they're still like, oh, Nancy Pelosi, honest broker.
Cenk, it's even worse than that though, because all you get over and over and over again is coverage that makes it appear as though the only thing that corporate Democrats are motivated by is their principles or their values. Like they're still covering Joe Manchin as if he's genuinely concerned about the price tag associated with that $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill. They don't in any way, do a little bit of a deep dive into the personal enrichment that Joe Manchin is concerned about losing if that bill passes, right? He doesn't want to do anything about climate change. Are you kidding me? He's making $500,000 a year off of dirty coal, personal investment. I'm not even talking about campaign contributions. They don't cover that. You have to rely on, independent outlets or places like The Intercept to cover those details, which are obviously weighing more into the decision making of corporate Democrats than anything else. One more quote from Nancy Pelosi, and then we'll get to progressives. She says, quote, "We had to accommodate the changes that were being necessitated. And we cannot be ready to say until the Senate passed the bill, we can't do bipartisan infrastructure."
But that's exactly what you said before.
That is exactly what she said before. And guess what? Progressives get to keep saying it because progressives, look, they have a different base. They aren't taking, I mean, not every progressive, right? But certainly Justice Democrats aren't taking corporate PAC money. They're not influenced by the same corrupt factors that influence these corporate Democrats. And to be sure, you have Pramila Jayapal even today making it clear that she intends to follow through on what her promise is, and so does half of the progressive caucus, she claims. And also, Representative Ilhan Omar did call out Senators Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema by name. Let's hear what she had to say.
It is saddening to see them use Republican talking points. We obviously didn't envision having Republicans as part of our party. And I hope that they will understand that Democrats need to be united behind the president's agenda. And we need to have urgent conversations on how to get this agenda done.
Yeah, I mean, if it walks like a Republican, talks like a Republican. And the thing is, it's not even about Democrat versus Republican at this point. When both parties are beholden to the same corporate interests, then they're gonna act the same. And they're going to work together to defeat legislation that actually improves the lives of their own constituents. Later in the show, we'll talk about how Joe Manchin is working against the desires and the interests of his own constituents. West Virginians overwhelmingly support the budget reconciliation bill, but he doesn't care. He's looking out for his own pocket.
Guys, we've been telling you this for 20 years. It's the donations. It's their bribes, they're obvious bribes. And so, and the second thing we told you is we need progressives to speak out against fellow Democrats. The problem here isn't Republicans. If the Democrats got rid of the filibuster, Republicans would have zero power, none, zero. But it's other Democrats who were negotiating with the donors. Everybody knows this except reporters, national reporters. And so, but we're fair, credit where credit is due. New York Times actually did a story on donors. It was so rare that I was like, oh, is it true? The minute I saw it online, I was like, save, favorite, like, okay, wait, I'm like, what is this, right? An exception proves the rule because you're so shocked that the New York Times would actually tell you this, and of course they never call it corruption, they don't call it bribes, so of course they wouldn't, right? But it's like they noted it for the first time I've ever seen. So Jonathan Weissman, give him credit for a good article here.
Last graphic.
Yeah, he wrote in the influential national, this is about Sinema's donors and how she's brazenly saying, here, come give me money. I'm gonna vote against taxes to save your ass. Just write me checks, write me checks. So Weissman covers it and he says, the influential National Association of Wholesale Distributors and the Grocers PAC, along with the lobbyists for roofers and electrical contractors, and a small business group called the S-Corp Political Action Committee, have invited association members to an undisclosed location for 45 minutes to write checks for between $1,000 and $5,800 payable to Sinema for Arizona.
Little afternoon delight.
Yeah.
45-minute session, get it in.
Yeah, a little bribe sesh, right? And it's like an auction. Like, come on, electrical engineers and not engineers, electricians, guys, plumbers, whoever you need, corporations, it doesn't matter. Come give money to Senator Sinema. She's up for sale. Oh, can I see 1,000? Can I 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000? But this is our politics. Out and out bribery. Right in the middle of the voting, in not the voting, but the crafting of the legislation. And she says, I will kill any tax cut for corporations, any tax increase for the rich. And they're like, okay, great, let's write her checks. Okay, good job, here's your bribe. She takes the bribe. And for the first time ever, the mainstream media has noted it. They're like, oh, that's curious. Right. It's not curious, it's the whole shebang. It's everything about politics. And if you're a reporter out there and you're an editor and you're not covering the corporate donations to politicians, you're embarrassing Go get another profession. That's the #1 factor by a landslide. And you guys are part of helping the powerful keep their power by ignoring the actual politics in America. But again, credit to Jonathan Weissman and the New York Times for running this story.
All right, one more story regarding the reconciliation bill and we'll move forward. So, support for President Joe Biden's budget reconciliation bill is so popular that now West Virginians are protesting Senator Joe Manchin, their senator, for serving as an obstacle to the passage of that bill. Now, remember, we keep hearing over and over again, especially from corporate media, that, well, what can Manchin do? West Virginia is a red state, and people living in red states don't want policies that actually materially improve their lives, right? Except that's not the case at all. So before I get to the details of the protest, let me give you the numbers regarding just how popular the budget reconciliation bill really is. When you look at the country as a whole, when the nonpartisan nonprofit Work Money surveyed more than 50,000 of its 2 million members nationwide, it found 81% of respondents said they supported the plan. That includes 90% of liberals who took the survey, 81% of moderates, and wow, would you look at that, even 66% of conservatives. But if you look at West Virginia specifically, the numbers are even higher. So 80% of more than 800 people surveyed in this home state believe we should vote to pass the bill. That includes 77% of conservatives who responded to the survey. 77% of conservative voters in the state of West Virginia are in favor of the budget reconciliation bill. You know why? Because it offers mandatory paid family leave. It expands Medicare by lowering the Medicare eligibility age. It helps to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices so people pay lower drug prices. I mean, it has the child tax credits, which would be made permanent. It has so many different provisions that, again, would actually give back to working Americans instead of, cut taxes for the rich. And Joe Manchin is against it because those are the very provisions that A, his donors don't like, but also B, would impact his bottom line as someone who's invested in dirty coal. He doesn't want to do anything about climate change, and those provisions are included in the budget reconciliation bill. And B, would do something to, impact other businesses, like let's say the hotel industry, which he also makes money off of. He's got his personal investments in addition to his corporate donors to worry about. That's what's going on here. So his own constituents have been protesting him. He apparently has some yacht that he lives in. And so they decided to use kayaks and small boats to surround his yacht and do this protest. West Virginia activists in kayaks and electric boats converged on Senator Joe Manchin's yacht in Washington, D.C. on Monday to protest the right-wing Democrats' continued obstruction of his own party's reconciliation package. And guess what? That's the right way to frame this protest. Again, shout out to Jake Johnson over at Common Dreams because he gets it.
Yeah, normally I don't love people going to folks' houses. It gets a little dicey. But this is
the yacht?
But this is a yacht, okay? And so
I like it, a yacht.
Oh, she's here all week. So it's hard to be against the kayak flotilla, okay? And unlike the Trump flotilla that wound up at the bottom of the lake. This one makes a lot of sense. Hey, Senator who's on a yacht and his name Manchin, okay, could you please throw some crumbs our way? So look, but the most important part of the story is 80% of the voters in West Virginia want it. He's opposed to it. Now, isn't it amazing? I'm gonna go back to this until I pound the corporate media into submission. Isn't it amazing that the mainstream media doesn't ask, hey, wait, why is Manchin opposed to something that 80% of his voters are in favor of? And that they then don't conclude that, hey, it might be all the money he's making, both as campaign contributions. He's the #1 recipient of money from fossil fuel industry in the Senate. I wonder if that has something to do with it. Or the personal money he's making that Anna told you about from coal. He's a coal baron. I wonder if they thought, I wonder how he got that yacht. That's coal money that paid for that yacht. And did that not occur to you that maybe Manchin is not a principled moderate who's just voting the way that his red state in West Virginia would want. Isn't it amazing that they do that marketing on his behalf? No, they've been doing it for months. And it's a lie. Look, it's a fact in this case. 80% are against Manchin's position. And yet, the mainstream media still does propaganda on his behalf. The principled senator from West Virginia representing his red state in a principled conservative and moderate manner.
But how are they gonna argue, by the way, that he's negotiating the budget reconciliation bill in good faith when he doesn't even know what he's in favor of in that bill, right? They keep asking him over and over again, okay, you're uncomfortable with the $3.5 trillion price tag associated with it. So what amount of spending are you comfortable with? And he doesn't have an answer because it's not about the spending. It's not about the issues that he's raised. Like now he's like, oh, well, you know, I think like we need to implement some means testing here to make sure that people aren't encouraged to, you know, take government aid instead of work hard. What? What are you talking about, bro? What about you? Are you working hard? What does Joe Manchin do on a day-to-day basis work-wise for him to turn around and judge Americans and whether or not they're deserving of any type of government aid? Are you kidding me right now? Dude's invested in dirty coal, makes $500,000 a year off that alone, okay? Spends most of his times at fundraisers and, you know, secretive meetings with billionaires, and he considers that hard work? Is that the hard work he does that requires him to rest on his yacht after a long, hard day? Like, get out of here. Absolute garbage for him to turn around and judge working Americans and whether or not they're worthy enough of things that other developed countries have had for a long time, including paid family leave. Garbage.
Okay, so that's a perfect translation. Look, so first off, you remember when at the beginning of COVID relief bills under Trump, they gave trillions of dollars to the largest corporations in the world, and the Federal Reserve said, oh, we'll back that up with even more trillions? Do you remember Joe Manchin talking about like, I don't know, this could make the corporations lazy, giving away not millions, not billions, but trillions to big business, to the most profitable, richest people in the world. That's not gonna make them lazy.
No, they're job creators,
right? But if we give you, for example, a child tax credit, so you can actually hire a babysitter when you're going to work, or bring your kids to a nursery, whatever, it doesn't matter, right? Like, so you can live, you can barely scrounge out a living, right? I don't know. It'll create a lot of bums in West Virginia. I mean, regular people, giving them $40 or $100, they'll just turn into bums. They're not like beloved rich people. You give them trillions of dollars and they work even harder.
Yeah, by investing in their own stock.
And yet, no one in media says, hey, wait a minute, how come you didn't object when we gave the trillions to corporations? How come you didn't call them lazy? Are you sure you represent the people of West Virginia? Guys, look, do your own testing, okay? Watch this show, spread these videos out, but go watch cable news too and see who covers it more accurately and who covers it more fairly, who gets it right and who gets it wrong. Now, for example, yesterday on the show, if you were watching, we told you, hey, Kyrsten Sinema is proposing a carbon tax. I'll tell you why she's proposing it, so that Manchin could say, oh, no, we can't do a carbon tax. Why is Sinema proposing a carbon tax? Because she's trying to kill any tax increase for the rich or for corporations. She used the excuse of a carbon tax because she knows that Manchin's gonna kill it. And what did Manchin do today? He said, oh, there's no way we're doing a carbon tax. You see that? So then Manchin and Sinema, who are allies, get into a fake stalemate and go, oh, well, there's nothing we can do. I guess we gotta kill the whole bill. It's exactly what we told you on the show yesterday, and it happened today. So you can see for yourself who's telling the truth and who isn't. Did anybody in mainstream media point out, oh, that's weird that Sinema would propose a carbon tax, which her top ally in the Senate, Manchin, is the #1 opponent of? I guess that would create a stalemate. And they would both not vote for the bill and kill the bill because of their differences of opinion, right?
It's gonna be a political bloodbath in 2022, and Democrats deserve it. That's all that needs to be said at this point. We gotta take a break. Let's do that, and we'll be right back.
All right, back on the Young Turks. Cenk, Uygur, and Kasparian with you guys. Did you guys know that Nina Turner's interviewing Jeremy Corbyn tomorrow on the Young Turks? Not a big deal. So that's the conversation right before the Young Turks on the TYT network. And that's at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. How's that for a spectacular, fun interview? So make sure you check it out live, and then that leads straight into the Young Turks. All right, Casper.
Senate Republicans did exactly what Senate Republicans threatened to do. They blocked the passage of legislation that would fund the government and would also raise the debt ceiling. This happened on Monday of this week. Again, this is something that Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell was threatening to do, to filibuster this bill, and that happened. So the GOP rejected a proposal to fund the government into December and lift the debt ceiling past next year's midterm. So the plan was to fund the government up through December of 2022. That way, politicians can do what they do best, spend all their time focusing on fundraising for the midterms. Now, the Republicans, of course, use the filibuster. You would need 10 Republican senators to vote in favor of the legislation. They didn't get that. And so the vote did fail, and you're about to see how that played out on the Senate floor. Let's take a look.
On this vote, the yeas are 48, the nays are 50. 3/5 of the senators duly chosen and sworn not having voted in the affirmative. The motion is not agreed to.
I want to make sure everyone understands exactly what has happened here on the Senate floor. The Republican Party has now become the party of default, the party that says America doesn't pay its debts. Our country is staring down the barrel of two totally Republican-manufactured disasters: a government shutdown and a first-ever default on the national debt.
That was a cute speech, but Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrats are in charge. They're in charge. So this game of trying to blame Republicans for what happened, I get it because it's accurate, but that's not what the American people are gonna see. The American people are gonna see that Democrats have the executive branch and Democrats have both control of the House and the Senate. So it's really hard to blame the Republican Party for something that honestly Democrats could have prevented from happening by doing away with the filibuster. So you don't need to worry about a legislative filibuster standing in the way of passing this legislation. That's it. It's that simple. It's that simple. So by the way, if you're gonna try to twist this and turn this and try to blame the GOP for it, I get it. But can you have a little charisma, a little oomph? He's like, I'm here today to explain to you how it's not our fault, even though we're in power and we could have totally prevented this from happening. Anyway, I'm gonna go take a nap. What was that?
I think he was in the middle of the nap when he was giving that speech. And it's funny you said that because I was gonna pick up on the same thing. You guys are gonna love it when progressives are in charge because we're gonna have fun and we're gonna actually make our points in an interesting and clear way. So this guy comes out here and he's like, now I'd like to point out today that the parliamentarian told the filibuster dude who then told the other person, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? There's two options here, okay? And so if we had a charismatic progressive in charge of the Democratic Party, they do one of two things. They say, hey, good news, guys. We ended the filibuster. We don't need Republicans at all. We have enough votes in the Senate and the House, and we have the presidency. Guess who gave us that power? You did, American people. We're gonna use it. Now, the Republicans are not happy. Good thing they lost. So here's the thing, all the things that we're gonna pass. We're gonna get you child tax credit. We're gonna get you paid family leave. We're gonna get you this. By the way, when we got them the giant relief package in the beginning, they loved it. Biden was at 61% approval. Now he's in the 40s and dropping, right? Because after that, they did nothing. When you gave them something, they liked it a lot. When you gave them nothing, they didn't like it. Ooh, that's tough to figure out. Oh, but the parliamentarian says, no. So you go, move, get out of the way. Get out the way, yo, get out the way, right? So that's option number one. And by the way, after you pass it, then you go, child tax credit. And you bring in all these folks and they go, she got a child tax credit, he got a child tax credit. What'd you do with it? What'd you do with it? You give a giant speech and you go, this is what the Republicans wanted to prevent? They wanted you To not be able to go and work and have somebody take care of your kids? Who's supposed to take care of your kids? The dog? Is that what the Republicans wanted? Okay, humiliate them, embarrass them, because their position is embarrassing. So that's so easy. But instead the Democrats are like, well, we did not receive Republican permission, so we don't quite know what to do, okay? So option number 2, I haven't heard anyone else say. Because it's a Cenk option.
That'd be a roll though.
That I know, how did they do that and had not realized they look like, I mean, come on, man.
No, they look like they're really fighting for us, everybody.
And the funny thing is, everybody in Washington sees this too, and they think, ooh.
Nailed it.
They're so good, man. They are master legislators. And they do. They 24/7, the media's kissing their ass. It's hilarious. Anyways, here's option number 2 on the debt ceiling. Oh, okay, the Republicans all voted no. Okay, we're not gonna lift the debt ceiling. I'm not gonna do it until the Republicans give me 1 vote. But wait a minute, then the government would shut down and the economy would collapse. Yeah, I need 1 Republican vote. Well, no, but you can't do that because then the economy will crash. I know. So I'm asking, is there a single Republican in the country who doesn't want to crash the economy? Oh, every single one of them wants to crash the economy. Well, that's interesting. All right, let's have at it. But remember, it was every Republican who wanted to crash it. And then let it crash. Oh no, we can't do that. Look, guys, the Republicans are going to buckle it.
But our AAA rating, James.
My ass.
What's going to happen to our AAA rating?
Now, it's all BS. Here's what's going to happen. I guaranteed if you do that, within 6 hours of us the United States of America not paying its bills, things that we have already spent and promised to pay, we don't pay our credit card, all of the corporations, when the stock market crashes, are gonna call their Republican senators and go, what the hell do you think you're doing? Shut up, go on that floor, and you all vote yes. And they're all gonna go, oh, okay, I'm so sorry, I didn't know, I was just trying to play poker, I'm so sorry. That's who Republicans are, man. You'll break them in 6 hours. You won't get 1 Republican yes vote, you'll get 40. But it would take cojones.
100%.
It would take someone with actual strength. And these corporate Democrats, they're paid to lose. They're funded by the donors to be weaklings. It's not an accident. That's why they don't do obvious things.
So I want to go to the second graphic here because I'm curious what your thoughts are. Because even Republicans have the same mindset they did decades ago, and I'm not sure this strategy is really gonna work for them. So Republicans see a political advantage to forcing Democrats to raise the debt ceiling on their own through reconciliation. Doing so forces Democrats to raise the debt to a certain number instead of doing a suspension through a certain date. The move would likely be fodder for campaign ads against vulnerable Democrats in the 2022 midterm elections. Like I don't know about you guys, but if I saw a political ad where it's like some Republican or any politician who's going against, his opponent by claiming like, you know what they did? They lifted the debt ceiling. They lifted the debt ceiling.
No, they didn't. Did they? No. Oh, that's it, I'm voting against them.
Really? That's what you've got? But that's the thing, like, the GOP has nothing to offer its voters. Nothing. Like, what are their ideas?
Yeah.
What do they want to do to improve people's lives? Like, what are their policy ideas? Can someone tell me? Maybe I missed it, but I haven't seen anything coming from the Republican Party for a long time other than let's cut taxes on corporations and the rich. Other than that, nothing, okay? So they want to rely on like, they raised the debt ceiling, these awful, like Democrats are awful for a whole host of other reasons. But they're not gonna go after them for those reasons because they agree with Democrats, corporate Democrats on those things, right? But in terms of like raising the debt ceiling, I don't know, man. People are struggling right now. I would argue the last thing that they would care about is a negative political ad attacking a candidate because they voted in favor of raising the debt ceiling.
Yeah, and so the way that they'll frame that, of course, in the ads is, oh my God, the Democrats added to our debt. Now, when we were doing the $2 trillion tax cuts for the rich under Trump, No one talked about this debt ceiling. This is a literal fact. When Trump was in charge for 4 years, the Republicans raised the debt ceiling, never made an issue out of it. Democrats, of course, because they're clowns, never made an issue out of it. Full well knowing that when Obama was president and when the next Democrat is president, the Republicans are going to pretend to care about the debt ceiling. Again, if we had charismatic progressive leaders, when they were doing a $2 trillion tax cut for the rich, they would have gotten up and go, debt ceiling. Sons of bitches are raising the debt ceiling to pay for $2 trillion in tax cuts for the wealthiest people in the country. Debt ceiling, right? But no. So if you're wondering why don't they? I mean, why there's not a single charismatic Democrat in the country? No, there's plenty of them. They get defeated in primaries when Democratic Majority for Israel and ExxonMobil and Big Pharma spend millions of dollars to defeat strong Democrats. They then take their oil money, the banker money, et cetera, and they give it to Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. And then they go out there and go, now be weak. Beg the Republicans, beg them at every turn. Never challenge them, especially on tax cuts for the rich. And Schumer and Pelosi go, yes, sir, absolutely, sir. And that's why we play these silly games.
That's right. All right, there you have it. That's the current debate about the debt ceiling. We got to take a break, but when we come back, some fascinating new data showing how COVID and the number of deaths related to COVID is suffering a partisan divide. We're going to take a look at red America versus blue America and see what the impact of right-wing disinformation has had in various counties that overwhelmingly supported Trump. See you in just a few minutes.
All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk, Uygur, Anna Kasparian, JC Luria, Eileen Worden, and Kelly O'Hara. Why? Because they just joined up. We're not the Young Turks, you're the Young Turks. Every member makes this show possible, helps us get the message out about what the reality is. And yes, we're going to change this country. And yes, we are going to get charismatic progressive leaders in charge. The future is going to be awesome. The present, not as good for that, Anna.
Yes, all right. Well, let's talk about what's taking place with coronavirus throughout the country. New data shows a pretty extreme partisan divide in the number of coronavirus deaths, with red counties that overwhelmingly voted in favor of Donald Trump suffering the highest number of coronavirus-related fatalities. Now, a Pew Research Center poll last month found that 86% of Democratic voters had received at least one shot. But then you compare it with Republican voters where only 60% of them have received at least one shot, right? So I love when the New York Times puts together these fun graphs. So I want to show you what that looks like. So this is data as of September 23rd, and it shows you, 60% of residents not fully vaccinated. As you go higher in that graph, you'll see that the red states are represented disproportionately compared to the blue states. In fact, if you go to places like New York, for instance, or California, the vaccination rates are incredibly high. In fact, some left-leaning communities, like many suburbs in New York, San Francisco, and Washington, as well as much of New England, have such high vaccination rates that even the unvaccinated are partly protected by the low number of cases. Conservative communities, on the other hand, well, that's a different story. They've been walloped by the highly contagious Delta variant. And that brings me to some specific numbers regarding various counties. Before I get to those various counties, though, do you want me to go to that first, or do you want to?
No, let me jump in for a second. So look, we're going to show you the results of that, health-wise and death-wise, but I still have people I know that tell me, oh no, it's not a right-wing thing. It's not, no. Blacks, Latinos, they were a little hesitant about getting the vaccine in the first place. So it's more spread out than the media's making it out to be. In the first couple of months, that was actually true. And so maybe folks heard it then and they're well-meaning and they just didn't read the later articles. But it's been a long time now, right? And that is just not remotely true. And that's what the first graph shows you. No, the vaccination rate is definitely dependent on right wing or left wing. And if we are more right wing, there's considerably less vaccinations. Now let's show you the results and what that leads to.
Right, and before I go to the numbers, I want to add one additional, point to help explain what's going on. Look, this is to be expected, right? Americans, unfortunately, with the technology that's available to us, live in these filter bubbles, and they're served up information and news, if you can call it that reinforces what they already believe. And so if you look at right-wing media, you'll see the way they cover coronavirus and how there's all sorts of disinformation about the vaccine. Oh, don't do the vaccine. I have stiff neck. Some random, side effect that's not like a widely experienced side effect by vaccine takers. Just all this stuff that makes people a little scared of the vaccine. Then you look at other media sources that don't fall under that right-wing umbrella, and there's encouragement about the vaccine, right? And you see that playing out. So in counties where Donald Trump received at least 70% of the vote, the virus has killed about 47 out of every 100,000 people since the end of June, according to Charles Gaba, a healthcare analyst. Now, in counties where Trump won less than 32% of the vote, the number is about 10 out of 100,000 people. Okay, yeah. So the numbers are clearly much higher in red parts of the country, specifically areas that overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump. And here's another graph that helps you visualize that. You can see, the Biden vote shares have far lower numbers of coronavirus deaths, whereas the Trump vote shares, the counties with large Trump vote shares, I should say, have far higher numbers of coronavirus deaths. And by the way, I want to just remind you all of that op-ed that was written in Breitbart by John Nolte. So this is a right winger, and he's obviously trying to persuade people to get vaccinated because he can see what's happening to right-wing voters. He says, right now, a countless number of Trump supporters believe they are owning the left by refusing to take a life-saving vaccine. In a country where elections are decided on razor-thin margins, does it not benefit one side if their opponents simply drop dead? Now, look, I don't know if the disparity in deaths is enough to really have an impact on future elections. I don't know. But the point here isn't about like, ooh, what's politically beneficial? Like, lives are lives. Like, you want people to live. I don't want anyone to die, regardless of what their political affiliation is. And it's so disgusting that we have so-called news sources that put their own profits over human lives. They would rather lie to their own audiences about the vaccine rather than just tell them the truth. Because guess what? Telling them the truth might hurt their ratings a little bit.
Yeah, so there's so many fascinating parts of this story. First of all, the numbers are clear. And I want you to understand how crazy the conspiracy theorists are. Because so, for example, the people who dispute climate change, which by the way includes almost every Republican elected politician in this country. Conspiracy theorists, nutsos. They think that everyone is changing every thermometer in the world. Like, oh, okay, no, the temperature didn't really go higher. And they did this for years and years, and they did it for decades. No, temperature's not higher, but the readings are higher everywhere, right? Nope, they're playing with the thermometers. I mean, you have to be crazy. Now, finally, the thermometer thing seemed absurd, right? So they're like, nope, it's not man-made. 99% of the scientists are wrong. 99% of the world's, how could they all be wrong, right? Okay, now in this case, do you think that all of the doctors, all the hospitals, all the morgues are all in on this global conspiracy and they're manipulating the case numbers and the death numbers?
Yes, they do think that.
They do, but so that's why I get frustrated that no one ever breaks it down and goes, hey, that's mental. Like, I know that people say conspiracy theories are crazy, etc., right? But when you break it down, you realize how over the top insane it is. Why would a guy who runs a morgue in Arkansas and a guy who runs a morgue in Budapest and a guy who runs one in Maine all be telling you that there's all these dead bodies at their morgues and at the funeral homes, and the doctors in the hospitals all say they died from coronavirus, and their family members say they died from coronavirus, and yet they believe it? Okay.
Yeah.
And so I have never seen a political party in any country commit what is almost literally political suicide. Because at this point, they're losing, and I told you this months ago, they're losing hundreds, sometimes thousands of voters in purple states and purple districts. And so they might literally lose the next presidential election because they killed too many of their own voters.
So we're quickly approaching, by the way, 700,000 deaths due to COVID in the United States. And it's like that death toll is so heartbreaking and depressing. And the fact that the numbers just keep going up, even though the vaccine is readily available to everyone, just tells you everything you need to know about the profit motive behind our media and how they're, the disinformation merchants. I mean, they're fueled by the ratings that they get because there's a market, right? There's a market. There are people who I think understandably lack trust in our institutions, lack trust in the pharmaceutical industry. And so they're already primed for the disinformation. And then you have people like Tucker Carlson who takes full advantage of it. In fact, let's go to this next graphic because I want to talk about why that disinformation is out there. Why do you still get these weird reports about like, oh no, take ivermectin instead of the vaccine, which would prevent you from being hospitalized, it would prevent you from dying from COVID. Well, as for the campaign trail, 4 different longtime Republican strategists told the Daily Beast that they have encouraged various 2022 GOP candidates who they're each advising to lean heavily into anti-COVID mandate messaging, viewing it as perhaps the winning issue with the conservative and Trump base of voters. So there's the political angle. By the way, the day after Biden's vaccine mandate announcement, the Republican National Committee began blasting out emails and text messages asking supporters to reach into their pocketbooks to help fund a coming legal challenge against the supposedly authoritarian mandate. Here's an example of what one of the emails said. We're calling on every patriot to step up and help fund our efforts. Are you going to join us or will you sit on the sidelines? The email asked and suggested a $45 donation. So look, it's funny enough, the very people who don't trust in our institutions because of the profit motive or the corruption behind those institutions are now being scammed by people that they unfortunately do trust who also have a profit motive or financial interests in lying to them or political motives in lying to them. And one of our viewers, I want to read this comment because Zappa fan writes in and says, if someone who is healthy enough to get COVID vaccines refuses to get it, insurance should deny them coverage. Well, look, I don't know if I agree with that, but it doesn't matter if I agree with that because insurance companies have already begun to refuse authorizing coverage for COVID patients. Because they're saying, well, the vaccine's out there, so why do we need to provide coverage if the vaccine's out there?
So we should have Medicare for all, so we have universal health care coverage in this country so that no one dies, Democrat or Republican, because they can't afford health care. That being said, in this barbaric system that we have where they deny us coverage for 1,000 different things, denying coverage for getting coronavirus if you weren't vaccinated, that's the most logical denial of coverage that I've ever seen. If you were vaccinated and you got a breakthrough case anyway, well, that's not your fault, they should cover it. But if you didn't get vaccinated, you chose to get it. Why do I have to pay for your really expensive coverage? We do insurance together. I don't want to pay for your coverage. Why don't you pay out of pocket? All you Republicans, all you ever do is support the rich anyway. So why don't you get your rich buddies to pay for your coverage? All right, so look, one more thing. In those emails, the Republicans called the Democrats fascists flat out. They just that's the Republican Party, official Republican Party, calling Democrats and Biden and Pelosi fascists. Meanwhile, Biden and Pelosi are like, oh, we want bipartisanship. Totally. Can we just get a hug from Republicans? What's wrong with you guys? That's an open-handed slap. Aren't you gonna do anything about it? And the answer is no. They're just gonna go back and get slapped over and over and over again. But what will the parliamentarians say? It's profound, sick weakness. So now, look at how crazy the Republicans are now. They gotta do double conspiracy theories to try to get people to save their lives. But what if it turns out saying that you shouldn't take the vaccine was the cup in front of you? Old school reference there. All right, anyways, Princess Bride. Last fact, 86% of Democrats have taken the vaccine. So it's not 100% yet, but it's a good high number, okay? Only 60% of Republicans have. So that's a giant 26% divide. And that's why so many more Republicans are dying all across the country. And of course, as usual with progressives, we're trying to help them. We're trying to help our political opponents because we care about them. We care that we don't care about their family. We want them to have health care. And so we're asking them, please don't die. And they're like, no way, I'll show you, right?
Anyway, own us.
Right, well, yeah, you owned us. But anyways, but notice that 60% of Republicans took the vaccine. So number one, give credit to 60% of Republicans because it matters that we're fair. Number two, this whole base, the livid, angry, weirdo base, the 30% of the country, is driving the Republican Party into both literal death and political death. Because the reality is now a lot of those people who are Republicans and already took the vaccine, remember the majority of Republicans took the vaccine, of the adults, are now gonna feel like, wait, am I the bad guy? Should I not be a Republican if I took the vaccine? And they're gonna, because guys, politics is all about identity. And once you do something, it becomes part of your identity. So I'm telling you this for the first time here, okay? You're gonna see polls coming out in weeks or months that are gonna say a lot of Republicans are now mad at other Republicans because they feel like they were shamed for taking the vaccine and saving their lives. So the death spiral of the Republican Party has just begun.
All right, just wanted to let my team know, please mark this day down because a month or two from now, Cenk is gonna ask for this prediction. It's gonna be super annoying because we're gonna be overwhelmed with work and we're gonna have to try to find it. So today's the day, mark it down.
Okay, you know why? Because you need to see how right I am. No. So you can see why we say the things we say, and you can see it for yourself and not just go, oh, okay, right wing, left wing, corporate media, I can't tell. We're trying to show you and teach you how you can see it for yourself.
Yeah.
That's why we do it.
All right, that does it for our first hour. When we come back, Tucker Carlson cries about how the country is losing its religion. We'll be right back.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.